Chapter 4. Hamilton Magnet High School was located far up north, where the Sierras peeked through the valley smog. Marissa was unfamiliar with her new school, though she suspected that most of the students came from homes where money grew on trees. But she had to admit that she might be wrong. Maybe those money trees were bare and fruitless, and maybe the students had their own fears. What was certain about Hamilton Magnet, every fall when Washington played Hamilton in football, her former high school crushed them under their grinding cleats. Her new school was also smaller, 900 students, and whiter. Washington was mostly Latinos and blacks, with whites and Asians who acted Latino and black. The shave-headed Asians with bluish skulls would holler in the hallways, arms flailing. Chale sapo, I can't lend you me Ron Fluff for the party. Mi jefita took mis llaves. Sorry. The transfer took only 3 days, 1 to convince her father and 2 for her high school to do the paperwork for the transfer, which by the time Alicia was out of the hospital. Now Alicia was home in bed, with get-well balloons that floated to the bedroom ceiling, but in time would sink down to the floor. There was a problem between the friends. Alicia had found out about her fight with Roberto at the hospital. Marissa couldn't believe Alicia was mad about that. Didn't she realize Marissa had been defending her? Please call, Marissa had whined, but Alicia didn't call. Maurice's Aunt Sarah was happy about the transfer. She lived only 3 blocks away from Hamilton Magnet and looked forward to her favorite niece staying over some nights. Her aunt was a nurse and wanted to encourage Marissa toward this profession. Marissa, out of respect, could only nod when she spoke to her aunt on the telephone and respond lamely, "Sounds fun, Tia. Sounds like you can make a lot of money." In truth, Marissa was leery of hospitals. Isn't that where you went when you were hurt? Or ready to die? Or had gotten in a fight? She had only to think of that two-faced Roberto. Then she remembered Renee. Maybe that's where you can meet, she gulped at this, a boy. The first morning at her new school, Marissa maneuvered herself down the hallway, searching for Renee. She was nervous, and on any other day would have snarled when a boy bumped her backpack. But this new school was unfamiliar territory, not the place to holler. Watch where you're going, pendejo. She spied Renee tying his shoes in the courtyard. She made a face at the white socks. She would have to talk to him about those socks and the high-water pants. She would have to tell him that he had to dress with the times. "Hi, Renee," she said as he approached him. Her voice, she tensed, was flat. She had been happy to get Renee's calls 3 nights ago, but now was different. He stood up, waving an arm bearing an oversized watch. "It's good to see you, Marissa," Renee said brightly. "How did you like it here?" "I guess it's okay, but I don't know anybody except you." 900 students, he gave one honking laugh and said 901 students now. "Renee, are you being funny?" He nodded and honked his laughter again. Marissa scanned the schoolyard. She told him that she had an appointment with a counselor before class. "Hope you get Mr. Laird. He's real nice." Marissa noticed his pants cuff caught in his sock. "Oh, God," she moaned, but admonished herself for thinking of the N-word, nerd. "Renee, we're going to have to talk," Marissa remarked as she nudged him away. "But first, I'm hungry." Her eye had caught sight of a snack bar with a fluttering neon light. "Talk about what?" He produced a cleanly folded handkerchief from his pocket and began to clean his eyeglasses, his eyes beady as a salamander's. "Stuff," she answered vaguely, aware that the time wasn't right. She prodded him toward the snack bar, where she eyed the donuts and the array of pies, apple being her favorite, though chocolate was way up there too. Her gaze floated up to the bananas speckled with dark spots. She debated whether to enjoy a true sugar rush or the much healthier banana. Last night, while eating a bowl of ice cream, her last, she promised, she had decided to stay away from the cookies, ice cream, sodas, and potato chips. She was determined to shed a few pounds. "Give me," she said to the student behind the screen door, "give me an apple pie. No, a banana." She turned to Renee. "You gonna get anything?" He wagged his head no. His eyeglasses were crooked on his face. "That's 60 cents, the girl said through the screen. Marissa let 6 dimes roll from her palm and slapped one before it fell off the counter. The two sat on a bench away from the milling crowd. She peeled back her banana and offered a bite to Renee. "No, I had some in my Wheaties," he said. Marissa laughed and nearly dropped the banana. She was thinking he eats Wheaties, the breakfast of champions. Then how come he's so weak? But she admonished herself for the second time within 10 minutes. She was no better than he, a 14-year-old girl with her own problems. She didn't want to be stuck up. What's funny? Renee asked. Nothing's funny, Marissa finally answered after clearing her throat of the first bite of overripe mushy banana. It's just kind of weird being here. You'll like it, Renee said. I'm glad you're here. There's lots to do. What do you mean? Like clubs? You belong to a club? Marissa had never belonged to anything except Girl Scouts for a month. She would have stayed longer, except she had eaten 6 boxes of Girl Scout cookies and didn't have the means to pay for them. The Thin Mints were irresistible. Yeah, I belong to the Science Club. Marissa stuffed the banana in her mouth to keep from laughing. And chess team, plus thespians, though I have never been in a play, but I'd like to read them in bed. I used to be able to recite some of Hamlet. To be or not to be, that is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings. I learned it when I was in 6th grade. Marissa let the banana stay in her mouth. Her stomach was convulsing with laughter. Are you okay? Renee asked as he jumped to his feet. I know the Heimlich maneuver. He moved behind the bench and embarrassed Marissa, who couldn't help but think, he's so cute. He's trying to save my life. Then there came a shout from one of the 4 girls passing by. Is that your girlfriend? Marissa broke out of Renee's grip. She had already swallowed the mouthful of banana, and her mind was assembling words to throw like daggers at the girl who had taunted her. No, taunted Renee. But she thought better of the situation. This was her first day. Plus, she had promised herself not to get so angry. Are you better now? Renee asked. I took a first aid class at the YMCA and know quite a bit about saving people. He said this with his arm hooked in hers. Marissa met with Mr. Laird, a counselor who sat behind a paper-cluttered desk, pulverizing one breath mint after another as he examined her transfer papers. He offered a mint to Marissa, who declined. Your test scores are good, he reported as he closed her file, but your grades from your last school. He sighed and tapped his pencil against her file. I know, she agreed. She had been examining some of his awards on the wall behind him, but now her attention was leveled at him. But I'm going to do better here. I want you to, he remarked. I want you too. She was serious. Good, he said, and stood up, pulling a sweater off a hat rack. He walked her to her American history class and said, Let's have lunch together later. Marissa was baffled. Lunch with an adult? But she accepted his offer and held her breath as she entered her new class. American history was not unlike history class at her old school, except most of the students were listening. When the bell rang, Mrs. Webb called Marissa to stay behind. Did I do something? Marissa asked as she approached the teacher's desk. No, Mrs. Webb said with a kind radiance in her eyes. I just want to welcome you to our school. If you have any questions about the material, please see me. Mrs. Webb pulled a book from the shelf, wrote the identification number in her roll book, and handed the heavy tome to Marissa. She informed her that they were on Chapter 4. Thank you, Marissa said in a near whisper. Mrs. Webb patted Marissa's shoulder. I'm so glad you're here. The third period, Marissa had learned the names of some of her classmates. She had thought she would be treated like an outsider, a chola girl with brown lipstick. But she was wrong. She was glad to be wrong. At lunch, she found Renee sitting in the cafeteria where they had agreed to meet. I bought you milk, Renee said. It's chocolate. You like chocolate, don't you? Renee, are you trying to spoil me? She could chug chocolate milk all day. I was in such a rush that I forgot my lunch. I could share mine. If I wanted to spoil you, I would have bought you 2 chocolates. He laughed like someone in a fit of an asthmatic attack. They went outside to sit on the grass and drink their cartons of milk. Renee offered her one of his 2 peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Marissa took the sandwich from him while staring at his white socks. She debated whether she should tell him or just shut her big mouth. She almost got the nerve to pull off his shoes and strip him of those socks. In the end, she decided to stuff her mouth with a large bite of sandwich and to say nothing. Renee brought out a Ziploc bag full of animal crackers. She took a hippopotamus and nibbled it at its stubby feet. You want to try out for the play? Renee asked. He was eating an elephant animal cracker. What play? The entire hippo was settled on her back molars. Her tongue began to work it loose. Romeo and Juliet. She almost spat out the cookie. You're joking, Marissa asked. No, I'm not. Auditions are this week. I'd never been in no play, Marissa chuckled. She fit another animal cookie into her mouth and asked, What am I going to try to be, Juliet? In case you haven't noticed. Without hesitation, she pinched at a layer of fat. You don't have to try out for her. Here, he stopped. You could try out for the nurse. Who's the nurse? Renee plucked a handful of grass and tossed it in the air. It's a real meaty part. You'll have to learn lots of lines, but I can help. Marissa was touched and caught some of the grass as it came down. She slapped the grass from her palms and scratched her nose. Or there's a musician. Renee tossed his arms and pretended to playing a violin. Do you play violin? She asked. I used to. Now I'm concentrating on piano, and I have a recorder, but I hardly ever practice. She scooted closer to him. She peeled a crumb of animal cracker from his cheek and wondered why she felt so comfortable with a boy she hardly knew. Renee took her hand. His thumb rubbed her thumb. A penny for your thoughts, he said. She was thinking. A boy had never called me before. A boy is feeding me cookies on a damp lawn. A boy is wearing white socks, and I refuse to call him a nerd or anything mean. What's going on with me? Yeah, she answered, and would have followed her simple yeah with more explanations, except she caught sight of Mr. Laird the counselor walking toward them. Dang, she muttered. Forgot I was supposed to have lunch with him. Renee released Marissa's hand. He stood up, swiping at the grass on the back of his pants, and answered, Sir, I have good news. The good news was that Marissa and Renee were going to audition for parts in Romeo and Juliet. She lay in bed that night glowing with happiness. She had the urge to call Alicia and tell her about Renee, but she held back because of Roberto. Alicia, heartbroken and now saddled with crutches, was hurting in a big way. Plus, Alicia was still acting mad at her. Was it because Marissa had knocked her boyfriend around? Or was she upset? Or was it sad that she had moved to a new school? I'm going to lose weight, she muttered. I really, really, really mean it. For dinner, she had no second helpings and only 2 dinky scoops of ice cream, though she savored the flavors by keeping the spoon in her mouth like a thermometer. We're like Romeo and Juliet, she told herself with a chuckle. She pressed a pillow into her face and through the darkness could see Renee with his white socks and his bent eyeglasses on his cute face. She could help him change, and yeah, I know, she thought, he could also help her change. Chapter 5. During her first few days at Hamilton Magnet, Marissa felt like she was on audition among her classmates. They kept looking at her, the new girl with brown lipstick and teased hair, and some would smile and others would just stare at her with flat, uninterested eyes. A few of the Latinos gave her looks that said, I know you, girl, and she would return the stare at them until they turned away. Her chewing gum, Juicy Fruit, her favorite, would snap like a whip when one of them stared too long. Mean thoughts surfaced like a shark. If anybody had looked at her like at her old school, she'd been slapped them, but she struggled to remain cool. It's different, she told her mother one morning as they drove up north through the suburbs. What do you mean? She asked. It's so white, she then asked. Mom, you ever eat tofu? Eat? Isn't tofu a martial art? No, Mom, it's some kind of food. They serve it at school. Later, Marissa learned that tofu was a soy product, which she tasted in a veggie burger. Her tongue registered a simple description. Tasty. She also learned that Renee was a vegetarian and avoided most milk products, though he would chug his favorite chocolate milk when he could. Milk isn't good for you, he announced. At least the way the dairies keep cows. Most dairies are really filthy. What are you talking about? Like milk duds aren't good for you? Marissa refused to believe that milk duds were unhealthy. Renee really doubled over in asthmatic laughter. Finally he said, No, milk duds aren't good for you, but I like them. After he controlled his laughter, he remarked, And I like you. Get out of here, homeboy. Marissa was suddenly shy as a pony. But I do. Right now I'm missing a chess club meeting because of you. Marissa was touched. You're missing a chess club for me? That's so sweet. He pulled on her arm, saying, Come on. They headed for the gym, where boys were playing basketball in street clothes, their pants precariously low on their hips. They hurried through the gym, where their classmates cast momentary glances at them, then dropped their interest immediately. Where are we going? Marissa asked as she walked quickly down a hallway. You'll see. Soon Marissa stood in the darkened room, where ancient weights lay dusty and forgotten. The boxing bag was deflated, and the wrestling mat was cracked. Football helmets lay like skulls against the wall. They don't use this part of the gym anymore, Renee explained. Then what are we doing here? Marissa asked. She wondered if Renee had brought her there to wrap his skinny arms around her thick middle and possibly bury his face into her neck. But she was wrong about his intentions. Renee wanted to exercise his masculinity in a different way. He lay on a bench, spit into his palm, and said, Pile it on. Get out of here. Come on, Marissa, he begged. I want to get strong. I wouldn't lift weights in the presence of anyone but you. He's so cute, she thought tenderly. She handed him a bar with weights in each end. He accepted the burden with a grunt. It's heavy. What do we have here, 50 pounds? Marissa didn't have the heart to tell him that he was lifting the equivalent of 2 soup cans tied on the ends of a broomstick. It's dark in here. I can't read the numbers. But yeah, it's about 50 pounds, maybe more. He did a set of 10 lifts, got up smacking his hands, and announced, I want to get me swalls, some muscles. Marissa picked up the pen that had rolled from his shirt pocket. Every day I want to come here and pump iron. Renee flexed his left, then right biceps. I want to be like the Terminator. If you want me to help you, then give me a kiss. Marissa couldn't believe she had said that. His arms became as limp as wet noodles. A kiss? He asked weakly as he lowered his head. He gazed down the weights on the ground. How about one more set first? He did 2 more sets, grunting through clenched teeth. They returned to the main quad of the campus just as the bell began to ring. Lunchtime was over, along with Marissa's opportunity to push her boy against the wall and force a kiss out of him. But she did blurt out, Renee, you've got to do something about your socks. They are clean. Nah, homeboy, your clothes ain't tight. She felt pity for the guy. You can't wear white socks like you do. Renee peeked at the lower extremities of his high-water pants. Your socks gotta match your pants. My mom never says anything. He offered his baffled face to her. Marissa propped her eyes on her hips and wiggled her bottom. Big boy, do I look like your mama? Renee smiled as he tugged on his pant legs, trying to hide the blazing whiteness of his socks. No, you look like... He began his asthmatic laughter. You look like honk, my honk, my hot mama. They put their first kiss on hold. It was nearly evening when Alicia called. Marissa, it's me. Marissa closed her bedroom door to lock out the sound of the mixer going at high speed in the kitchen. What's going on? Silence. Are you mad at me? Marissa asked. Alicia didn't answer the question. How come you're at a new school? You think you're better than us? Her voice sounded forced and unnatural, as if she had been practicing the lines of a bad play and couldn't get them right. I never said I was better than you. Marissa was hurt. She raised a fingernail to her mouth and chewed. I didn't say that. Some other girl said that. Marissa pictured her so-called friends cutting her up, calling her a coconut, brown on the outside but white at the core. They were probably calling her fat, tangle-haired, smelly maybe, and extending their insults to her family. I don't care what other people think. They're stupid. I'm happier over there. How come you don't like it over here? Here was a school with no working drinking fountains, no nets on the basketball rims, no toilets that flushed consistently, no teachers who hadn't had their cars keyed or tires poked with ice picks. Here was a school whose flag could only be hoisted halfway up. I'll be straight up and tell you I don't like Washington. Marissa stated firmly. It's nasty. I just want to do something different. To change the subject, she asked Alicia how her leg was. She almost asked about Roberto. When am I going to see you? Alicia asked. I'm going crazy in my room. Marissa felt for her friend. Yeah, you're stuck in bed. Nah, it hurts a little bit, but I can get around. They made plans to get together at a school car wash at Marissa's old school, Washington. Heard from Roberta, Marissa asking. He left some messages on my machine, but I'm not calling him back. Right on, girl, Marissa told her friend that she had to go, that her mother was screaming for help in the kitchen. I miss you, Alicia murmured. Marissa was confused. First, Alicia had called to say that a bunch of shanky classmates were talking about her. Then she was being all friendly. I'll call you, she told Alicia. In the kitchen, her mother was licking the blades of the hand mixer. You want some? Her mother asked. She handed Marissa a whirly blade white with frosting. Marissa took the blade and made a swipe with her fingers. As she licked the frosting, she warned herself. It's 20 calories and more if I keep going. She set the blade into the sink. What do you want, Mom? I want you to finish the cake. Her mother pointed at a lopsided cake that required a layer of frosting. Use a plastic spatula. Marissa plastered the cake with frosting and then helped make frijoles. She oiled a pan, set it on the burner, and after a long minute scooped beans into it. The beans, little troopers, sizzled and marched in the pan. Mom, do you think I should be going to Hamilton instead of staying at Washington? Marissa mashed the beans and added a handful of yellow cheese. Wearing mismatched oven mitts, her mother slowly brought a pan of red enchiladas out of the oven and set it on the counter. Claro, of course you should. She took off the mitts and peeled back the aluminum foil. Steam rose against her face. Why, don't you like it there? Yeah, I do, except I got a call from Alicia. Pobrecita, how's her leg? She's home and she's getting around on crutches. Marissa hesitated, but finally informed her mother that some shisty girls were talking about her. So let those cholas talk about you like that. Her mother was furious, like a blender on high. Just because you're going to a better school, they're jealous. She cupped her hands and yelled to the den, Raphael, it's dinner. I like it at my new school, Marissa said. I know you do. You're going to do well. She cupped her hands and called out a second time, Raphael, then, we're waiting for you. Marissa poured iced tea from a pitcher, and instead of doctoring hers with scoops of sugar, she took it plain. When she cut into her enchilada, steam rose and moistened her forehead. She blew on a forkful and told her father, Dad, I'm trying out for a play. Como? His big mustache went up and down as he chewed. I'm going out for Romeo and Juliet. He chewed and chewed, cleared his throat, wiped his hand with his mouth with his napkin, and picked up a grain of arroz that had fallen from his fork onto the table and remarked, I used to know Romeo and Juliet. Dad, get out of here, Marissa said in disbelief. No, really, he said as one hand absently rubbed the front from his stomach. Back in high school, there was a guy, Romeo Garcia, and his girlfriend was Julieta Mendoza. They were an item. As she drank, Marissa stared at her father through the bottom of her glass of iced tea. Her father seldom veered far from the truth. She listened as he told her how Romeo loved his Julieta until this other guy came along. Who was the other dude? He looked at her straight in his eye. It was me. Marissa's mother slapped his arm. Mentirosa. You were too busy chopping cotton to have a girlfriend. Chopping cotton? He chuckled with both hands on the ball of his stomach. That's how I met Julieta. He winked at his daughter and went for the second helping. Marissa was in bed, near the edge of sleep, when her math book in her face, when her cell phone rang. She rose up onto her elbows and plucked the phone from the headboard where she kept her stuffed animals. Yeah, she asked, face draped with her hair. She swept it out of her eyes, which were still closed, but suddenly opened when the voice asked, How's Alicia? Roberto the rat, la rata. Why are you calling? Marissa glared at the clock on her chest of drawers. The clock glowed 10:18. I'm calling because Alicia won't answer her phone. She don't want to see you. You broke her leg. Worse, you cheated on her. Alicia told me that girl in the photo was Mui Fei. She closed her math book, and set it roughly onto the floor. Marissa could hear Roberto swallow. He muttered, How come our school ain't good enough for you? She clicked off the phone as she muttered, Tonto jerk. But a second later the phone rang again. She picked it up and roared to Frosty, I said she don't want to talk to you. You don't want to talk to me? It was Renee, a lamb with no sins, except bad taste in clothes. Oh, Renee, it's you, I'm sorry. Marissa sat up and rubbed the hammer of her right fist against her sleepy eyes. I'm calling you because you like me, Marissa risked. You're sweet. Yeah, he giggled, and because I got up to do 15 push-ups without stopping. My Terminator, Marissa crowed. Oh, come on, Marissa, I'm not really that strong yet. Marissa could see him bashfully lowering his face. She pictured him doing each of the 15 push-ups and shaking from the pain as he touched his nose to the ground. Yes, you are. Oh, my, Renee whispered, and then told her that his mother had bought him a pack of blue socks.